Hi everyone, this is your guy Ed from the Backroom Podcast. Welcome to the channel for our pilot episode. We will be having with us today Wayne Findlay, the Backroom's very own CEO and accounting genius. He'll be sharing with us everything we need to know about prepping services. Now that's interesting, isn't it? Certain things like the gist of the process, its benefits, maybe share one or two client experiences with prepping, because as you might know, prepping services is the newest, hottest, cost-efficient offshoring service we have here at TBR, and we are more than happy to share what you might be missing. So turn those volumes up. The Backroom Podcast presents Prepping. All right, welcome to the Backroom Podcast. We have here Wayne, which is going to talk about the prepping process or the prepping services that we are going to offer here in the back room. So we'd like to get to know you a little better. So could you tell us a bit about yourself personally, Wayne, your background and how you got started accounting with the back room?
Right. Well, it's a long story, but I'll give you the shorter version.
All right.
So I am an accountant. I am proud of it. I'm from New Zealand, and we got started off a farm actually in a small place at the bottom of New Zealand called Tuatapere, which is a Maori name, which is our local culture. So yeah, when you're on a farm, when I was young, there wasn't many choices on what we were going to do. It was you become a farmer, a stock agent who looks after farms, a banker, or an accountant. So I chose an accountant. And so I went to university in New Zealand at Otago University and came out of there, and that's where I started accounting. And I started my own firm in 2000. Very small. It was just me, myself, and no one else. And I grew that firm up, and and that was in Wanaka, a lovely place, which is in the Alps in New Zealand. It's a tourist town. And really, how I got going with the back room was in our accounting firm. We'd grown to the stage where we had staff that we had in the Philippines, and I'd been over doing some training in the Philippines with our team, and there was a rugby game on, and being a Kiwi, I had to watch that rugby game. It was our team, the Highlanders, playing New South Wales, and we were in the semi-final, and I didn't want to miss it. So the person next to me when I was watching it was another Kiwi in the Philippines, and that was Mark. And Mark's now our manager. So we got talking, and the rest is history with the back room. So we started off with when we got going, our staff plus some other firms, and maybe we started with about, I think it was 12 or 13 employees, and sort of right now our sort of head count, we're getting closer to 250 employees. So it's been quite a journey.
All right. You've mentioned that you've had an accounting firm before you started the backroom, which named Findlay and Co. So, can you tell us about a little history and journey with Findlay and Co? How did you go with it?
Yeah, like I suppose I always wanted to do things my way, and I'd worked for some other firms, and I'd picked up some really good ideas and ways to do things. But it was about 2000 when the chance came to take on, my own firm in Wanaka. And at that stage, it was just myself. So, but Wanaka is a beautiful place, a lot of tourists. It was growing. And so it didn't take long before we grew where I need more staff, and got my brother Scott on board about 3 or 4 years later. And he'd also been an accountant. He didn't take up farming, and so Scott and I grew the business. We got up to about 25 staff. But
Wow.
the values that we had in our accounting firm are very similar to the values that we have with the backroom, which is, innovation.
Yes.
We're always looking at ways to innovate and pick up on new ideas.
Yeah.
I love the Japanese word kaizen, which is all about continuously improving your systems. So we're always looking at ways to improve the way we do things.
Yeah.
And we're big fans of technology. So whether
I
it's
can see
tech or
that.
software,
Yeah. I can
and
see
that
that.
can do a better job, we always do use that. And big for us, we're family people. So family is really important for us. And it was with our accounting firm, and it is really important for us
Yeah.
with the back room. And Zero, we've had a big long journey with Zero as well. So we were heavily involved with Zero, and that's flown through into the back room today.
Yeah. Wow. That's a quite a story, Wayne, you got there. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
That's a good story and very, very inspiring for people who wants to do business in the Philippines as well, and most probably the offshoring business in the Philippines. But let us not talk about or dwell more on that. Let us talk about what we are going to talk about right now, which is the prepping service that we are talking about. Now, what is this? What is prepping actually? Before we tackle what prepping service is, what is prepping, and how did you
yeah.
introduce prepping, and how did you go with prepping?
Well, prepping, it was part of our journey with Zero, um, was how we got onto prepping. Um, I sort of Zero, if you're not familiar, it's accounting software. It's a New Zealand based software, and it's done really well worldwide. And we were early days with Zero. But the cool thing about Zero, and now most accounting software, is that it's data centric. So the data is available to you a lot of the time, or more, pretty much it's available all the time. So you can just get a hold of the data. So it's centric between the accountant, the client, and so that means it makes our job a lot easier.
Oh wow.
And so what we did at Findlay and Co. when we were accounting was we thought, look, how can we use this data? Like we, instead of doing the traditional mode of doing year-end accounts or monthly reporting, let's re-engineer, let's rethink on how we could use that data proactively instead of reactively. And and so what we came up with was this what we call prepping. And I think there's a good analogy, and it's sort of like the doctor nurse analogy.
Oh yeah.
So so you have a doctor who does the operation, but he doesn't prepare the patient for the operation, and
Yes.
he doesn't do the final pieces of the operation. So there's different people involved in different roles.
Yeah.
So you have your nurse who would prepare for the op, and then would probably do the post op. So we we thought, look, with accountants, we should be having our preppers or our junior accountants preparing the file for the senior accountants to do the operation, and that's sort of how we thought about prepping, and that's sort of how our system works.
Wow, that is really good actually. I love the analogy on how you use the nurse and the surgeon for the prepping services that you have. Now, what do you think will be the benefits for prepping for the seniors before they draft the annual accounts?
Yeah, well, with Finley and Co. Before we sold our firm, we'd been prepping for probably 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Once we built the system, and there were some big changes for us, and the benefits. The big thing for us was our throughput on jobs. So we were up to around 30, 35 days on a job uh,
Yes.
from start to finish. And that was pretty standard in the accounting industry. But with prepping, we got our throughput time down to around 10 days,
Mhm.
which is really fast. Our open jobs was another one, so we wouldn't have a lot of open jobs with prepping meant because we were working on the jobs faster, our open jobs were around 5 was on average what we would have open at any time. So we were quite concentrated. We didn't have to think about what other work you had. You could think on the job that you were working on. The other thing was training. Prepping's just awesome for training junior staff and teaching them how the accounting process works. And let's be honest, nowadays a lot of the accounting is systemized with software. So it's knowing the systems, knowing where to find the data and how to use it. So that analogy of the nurse and doctor means you can really train your nurses up to be doctors is what we were doing. Better staff engagement, like the team, they love prepping. It meant that they could concentrate. Our onshore team, we're talking more our senior accountants, could be more client facing, which meant we had capacity within our firm. Me as a director of the firm, it freed me up a lot where I could be more with my clients. I wasn't focused as much on the compliance side of the business. We had a real good checklist, so we were systemized. So that meant things were quality control was really good. We would schedule our jobs, so we had more control. One of the key things, though, Ed, was our personalised questionnaire that we would create with the prepping process. So that meant we would send that out to the client, and it was personalised. So we would get accurate information. It was specific to the client, and that meant we got a big response rate on our questionnaires. So we just didn't send out a generic one. And that meant the client was happy as well. And all that added up to was better margins for us, more profitable, and a lot more capacity within our firm.
Wow, that's a big one.
Yeah, quite a lot.
Actually, that was a big big details and big achievement that you achieved when you were doing the prepping services. Now, that is that's quite an improvement for the annual accounts. So, how about thinking on your onshore team, your team in New Zealand? Uh, how about them? Did they think about that, or did they see that as a threat for them?
Yeah, we were a bit worried about that for a start, especially with having an offshore team doing the prepping. Would they see it as a threat? But it was a complete opposite in the end. Our senior team wouldn't pick up a job unless it had been prepped, because they could see the benefits to them of getting the jobs done, a lot faster. We had I call it a win-win situation where we could get our onshore team to be more client-facing. They could do more higher value work, so we could pay them more. So because we got more better fees for the higher value work we're doing. So I see it as a win-win. And the accountants that were onshore, they could, grow themselves personally. So I think it was, it was really well perceived amongst our team.
Yeah, actually, that was a really win-win situation because senior accountants can be like you, facing the clients themselves, be more personal when it comes to the service that you are providing, which is a very good thing, actually. Now, when you were talking to your clients on introducing the prepping service, how did it went? What did your clients think about prepping? How did they sound about it?
Yeah, well, to be honest, the clients probably didn't even know we were prepping.
Yeah.
We didn't advertise it to them because with Xero especially, you have that data at your fingertips. So we would start the year-end process after our balance date in March and April, May. We would do the prepping of all the jobs for the year. So what the clients did see, though, was the questionnaire again, which was great because it got ask them the right questions, and we would get the right answers. So that meant there was no pick up and put down, which is a big thing
Yes.
in the accounting world for job blowouts.
Yes.
And also it improved our turnaround time. So the clients weren't waiting for their work to come back. So it meant we could do their job a lot faster and also a lot more structured because they knew, when it was coming, when it was ready. So, I think even though they probably don't know what prepping is, they loved us as a result. It made us look very good.
Actually, yes, that was great. Actually, it's just amazing that they didn't even question anything about it. They just trusted the process and see good results, and great results are coming back. So, which is a good thing. As I've heard now that the back room now offers prepping to accounting firms. How does that work for them?
Yeah, so we saw that as a natural progression for the backroom with our offshoring business is to go towards doing a job by job, but we didn't want to do the full job. So we thought prepping, which is what we did at Findlay and Co, is the way to go.
Yeah.
So we would typically for a job, we would scope the job, send out a quote or a proposal based on the number of jobs or files that need prepped.
Yes.
We would get the data, which is key. So we would get a login to the Xero or QuickBooks, so we could get that source data.
Yes.
And we've got a team that gets all that other data that we need. Then we prioritize. We get a list of all the clients that need prepped, and then we prioritize them, do the work, and then the last thing, which is important, is get the feedback back from our clients as to what went well, what could do better. Also, just with that checklist, we can fine tune that and make it quite specific for some firms if they do things a bit differently to what we do. So we can tailor that for them.
Yeah, it's kind of good thing that the checklist is flexible to anyone so that we can create a customized for this client and then for this client and then a specific one or specialized for this client, which is a good thing for them. That is an additional points for that. That's good. That's good. Yeah.
It makes a
And
difference.
yeah, we're talking about prepping and stuff. Now, the question in my mind would be that why did you create prepping at the back room?
Well, we knew prepping, from our days at Findlay and Co, and would relay that to some of our clients as well when they were doing it, and it was making a huge difference. So we wanted to spread the word. I think that the traditional way of doing the year-end financials, is gone. The data, as I mentioned, is centric, so you can get a hold of it. So use it differently, and the margins are there. So it's going to improve your business, and it's going to improve your team, and it just makes things a lot more efficient. So I just wanted to get it out there. So, and it also helps with capacity. So you can get through a lot of work by prepping at the start of the year, which means that when it comes to the end of the year, it's nice and easy, to get through the remainder of the work you got. You could do some more value add or business advisory type work with your clients.
Yeah, that's great. Actually, when we the concept of prepping is very good. That at the start of the year, you gather the info, the data that you needed, and then how, when it along the way, the data that is coming in, you just can put it in, and then once we are going to finalize the annual accounts, you just doing just a bit of work.
Well, yeah, and also Ed, like with your onshore team, your accountants, you don't want to get them to do the prepping because they're there to do the year end, the doctor's stuff. So that's why we can do all that prepping for you, get all the files prepped for the year. And so then the jobs are sitting there ready to go. The questionnaires are sitting ready to send out. And so it just makes it a lot easier.
All right. That's a good thing, right? So
Yeah,
now having this prepping services, now how do we learn more about the back room and the prepping services?
yeah, we've created a brochure which is available on our website, and that gives you a bit more detail. I wrote a white paper about prepping,
Yeah.
so that's also on under our resources on the website. But I'd just say pick up the blower and give Scott and myself a ring.
Yeah.
Look, we're always keen to talk to accountants and tell them about how it can work for them, and how it can work for their firm, because every firm's a wee bit different. So you know, that's why I'd just get on the phone and give us a ring.
Yeah, that would be a great way to connect with you, Scott and Wayne. All right, guys, thank you for listening to our podcast. And thank you, Wayne, for also sharing your wisdom and a little bit history of the back room. Thank you for also explaining what prepping is. Now, for you listeners out there who haven't taken notes yet or forgot to take notes, I got you guys. Here are some takeaway notes for you. Now, what are the benefits of prepping? First, it starts as a training ground for fresh graduates. So when they transition to be a drafter, they already know what they are going to do. When they prep, they gather data, information such as bank statements, and then they analyze what is inside a annual accounts or an annual account. So when they transition to be a drafter, they already know what to do with that annual account. They know their way. They know what to use and they know what to expect coming from the prepper. Second, you will be having more client facing. Okay, you will have more time to visit your clients, to have a beer, to have a chat, to have a coffee with them. That will add a personal touch with your business. All right, but the main thing that struck me the most was the word mentioned by Wayne, a Japanese word mentioned by Wayne, Kaizen. It is actually a process, or a Japanese process, which means it creates continuous improvement based on the idea that small ongoing positive changes can reap significant improvements. Just how the fresh graduates graduate from prepping to be a drafter, right? Just like in business, creating continuous improvement based on that idea that small ongoing positive changes creates or reaps significant improvements. Thank you for listening with our podcast, and for those listeners out there, thank you for subscribing on our channel, and see you guys next time. Bye.